What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and this is the Early Bird Artcast number 43. How you guys doing today? It's a wonderful Friday morning, and I'm doing all right. I think I feel a little better than yesterday. I don't know. I still feel sick. Um, but yeah, I don't know. One thing that's cool is my computer and internet are actually working at a regular, like decent, reasonable speed today, which is so weird. It's so uncommon, but I'm happy for it. So yeah, um, so much stuff going on. Wow, like I got collaborations going on. I got all kinds of, I don't know, just infrastructure to take care of and life to deal with and overtime to work at work and just it's just never ending, guys. But it is what it is. It's all good, and as long as I can get it all done and still have time to work on my my comics, you know, I'm doing all right. And as long as everybody's healthy, you know, there's a lot to be grateful for. That's for sure. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I had like a really awesome, like super cool, like the best thing in the world type of topic for today. Yesterday I had an idea for one. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, definitely talk about that. That'll be like so good. People will be intrigued and I'll get like a million views and then yeah, I don't know. I just don't remember it. No, but yeah, I did have like a topic. I was just like, now it just sucks. I for the life of me can't remember what that topic was. Um, but oh well. Um, I've been thinking a lot about really a lot of things, but I have a lot of stories. Basically, I want to get I really want to kind of hone a system for writing for myself and something that like really just hits the right spots and stuff and just like kind of helps me to think about the right questions and something that's very efficient. It's basically been something I've been kind of toying with for a while. I mean, I've just been trying to understand story. I don't think I'm going to be able to like do this vector layer silliness. I think I'm just going to merge these two layers or something because I cannot keep track of what I'm doing here. Um, but you know, I've been just trying to understand story um, for a long time now, and I've done a lot of studying, read books, watched a lot of YouTube videos and tutorials, asked Fue a ton of questions because he's pretty good with story, um, and other people too. I had Jersey Droz on my podcast. I talked about story with him. And Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Story is kind of an elusive thing. It's not like I started out like trying to figure it out and be like, okay, I'm going to take a week or maybe this month and try to just finally figure out what this how this story thing works. And what I found out was it is just not something you can figure out. Like it's something. It's one of those lessons that you will take your whole life to learn and still be learning new things. You know, it's not something you can just like figure out in a day. Um, but I have learned a lot, and I'm really happy about that. Um, One thing, let's see. Let me just pause it here for a sec. Had to cough again. Um, One thing that's been really helpful, though, that I think I think I might have first heard from Fue, but I'm not sure because I've talked to a lot of people about story. Um, is the Story Circle by Dan Harmon that is basically a simplification of the hero's journey by which was started from Joseph Campbell. And I really want to read Hero with a Thousand Faces at some point, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But I have a feeling it'll make me pull out my hair, but because it's kind of like a scholarly approach to understanding story, I guess. But I don't know. I think I've gotten a handle enough on some things that I'm less intimidated by that book, and I think I can kind of read it and get and just kind of take what I can take from it, basically, and not be too worried about being super attentive to the details of it. And so, anyways, the story Embryo was created by Dan Harmon, and you know, um, he basically, in 8 steps, kind of simplified the hero's journey in a way that was workable for him, and he shared it with the world and made a blog about it. And you can read that blog today if you like. And so I've been trying to study that, be a student of that, and I really want to understand that to the fullest. And I'll probably be doing some YouTube videos on it once I have a better understanding of it, and kind of parlay that into a system for writing comics or really anything. Um, so I'm really inspired by that. And basically, I feel like I was trying to create my own story system, and I'm realizing that I don't really need to reinvent the wheel. There's been a lot of people who've thought a lot harder about this stuff than I ever will. Um, so, stand on the shoulders of giants and write some cool stories. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And the thing that's really cool about Dan Harmon's story is also called the story circle sometimes, the story embryo. The thing that's really cool is it's kind of a one size fits all solution, which is really interesting. Um, you can really kind of, let's see, I'm trying to think of how I can do this. Um, it's really something that works for any story, I think. And like anywhere from like of any scale, like whether you want to write a 7 tome series of novels or whatever, or if you want to just write a joke, you can use the story structure um, for all of that. So I don't know, I'm curious, with you guys, have you guys studied the story embryo at all. I noticed one thing with comic creators. I don't know. I've just been pretty disappointed with just in general comic book stories. Like I shouldn't say disappointed, but like they're just. I've said this many times, but you know, I don't often or haven't really ever gotten the emotional impact from a comic book that I have from TV shows and movies and other forms of media. And I don't think that's because comics can't do that. I think it's because one, I haven't read the right thing, and two, there's a lower standard, I think, for comic book stories that's been set. And it has to do with the fact that it was kind of started as pulp fiction in America, and the speed in which these stories had to come out and be drawn and everything like that. Um, and it's only been, and I think it's becoming more sophisticated. People are thinking deeper about story and art when it comes to comics. I don't know, maybe, I don't know, to a certain degree. There's more of an opportunity to take your time and make an amazing comic book now than there ever was. Um, and obviously, it has been done in the past. There's like Watchmen and all that stuff, and many other examples. But I just haven't. Unfortunately, most of those examples I haven't read. Um, you know, s- I've talked about this before, but like Sin City is one that I've read that I've had kind of a satisfying story experience with to a certain degree. Usually these kind of single vision comics are the only ones that I've had somewhere close to the experience I'd like. But again, I know there's a lot of stuff out there. I just haven't read the right things. Bone is pretty good. It's I haven't finished it yet, but there's definitely more character development and just feeling and heart to that than a lot of stuff I've read. But anyways, I don't want to go into all the different comic stories I've read and stuff. The whole point of why I'm saying this is it feels like traditionally in comics, people have tended to think to not place as much importance on like good storytelling techniques as far as like the written like story, the script and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, you think about like things like Chris Claremont and stuff, and I don't know. Like to me, it's just like I don't know. I just want to have a cohesive story experience, and for me as a creator, I want to do that, but I also want to have somewhat of a system that is efficient because if you're somebody who has this one idea and you just want to you just have this amazing idea and you've been wanting to do it your whole life and you just need to get this idea out and that's kind of the extent of your comic book making is this one idea. That's awesome. And I think that's a great way to go. um, but I'm just not that person. So I'm the type of person who wants to do a million different ideas. Like I come up with new ideas every day. And so I want to be, somebody who gets a lot of those ideas out. And so I kind of need some sort of efficient system to iterate on those ideas as I go. Um, so I'm really looking to Dan Harmon's story structure pretty heavily, and I think it's going to be a pretty good solution as a basis. Kind of a good starting point. Um, I can obviously deviate however I want from that system or any system. Um, Systems, in my opinion, they need to be kind of more guidelines than anything. Um, I think that's why people maybe don't like kind of certain systems and stuff because they feel like, oh, well, then it's prescriptive, and then you don't have freedom to do this and that, and who says you have to stick to a system? I mean, if there's a that's kind of been my thing. I tend to be the person who doesn't stick to whatever system. Like, I do it however it works for me. And sometimes that's caused people to like not love. I don't know. I feel like that rubs some people the wrong way sometimes. But I'm not trying to do it for that purpose. I can't. If I get too caught up in any specific system, then it shuts down my creativity. So I kind of have to do my best to be creative within any system. But yeah, I don't know. Again, have you guys played around with the story embryo, or do you have a system? It seems like when I talk to creators about this, I mean, it definitely differs between different creators, but generally, especially artists, people who are artists, do the art and the writing. Um, it seems like they don't. A lot of us don't have like a very sophisticated approach to storytelling. We just kind of sit down and write something, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, but at a certain point, when you've done enough stories, you want, for me at least, I mean, I've done a few, and every time I want to get closer and closer to something where I can actually convey an idea and write a character that people connect with, and invoke certain emotions and stuff like that. I want to be able to do that kind of thing, and I'm not going to be able to do that just by kind of pantsing everything. I love the idea of pantsing, but I just feel dissatisfied with the stories I've made so far, and I want to make them better. Like Corncob Rob, for instance, I really think it's fun. It's a fun story. I love it, and I'm happy to share it and stuff. But there's definitely issues with it as far as just a lot of very fundamental story writing um, techniques, I guess. But the thing is story. One thing about story is it's very natural. It's natural to kind of be a human and recognize a story, and to be moved by it. I mean, we literally live our lives off of stories. Um, our lives are surrounded by stories, and we tell each other stories to help us all get through life. It's a means of, it's literally, story is literally a means of survival. So it's important, and also it's just something that's just very natural, really. So to sit down and not have learned anything about story and to sit down and write a story, it is something you can definitely do. You don't have to like be super, you know, prescriptive about it or anything. You can just sit down and start writing a story, and you'll probably come up with something. If you work at it long enough, you'll probably come up with something that actually can be broken down into one of these systems that people have thought a lot about it have kind of they've kind of broke the basically Joseph Campbell and Dan Harmon, the work they've done to create their little story systems is by analyzing stories that are out there and finding the common points that are hit in every story to make it into something that resembles what we all think of as a story. So they kind of reverse engineered it, you know. So it's already kind of an intuitive process. You know, people have been telling amazing stories for a long time, and these writing systems, many of them haven't been around for a long time. So it is perfectly valid to just kind of go about it the way a lot of us do and just be like, you know what? I feel I have the story. I need to get it out. I don't know how to write a story, but I'm going to do it. And there's one thing that I saw Gaz talk because there's a thread going on in the ant- sec- anthology too that I've been talking about. One person brought it up. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to hold up for a second. There's been um, there's been a thread about story in the anthologies group, and Gaz responded to it. A lot of people responded to it. I responded to it. Um, and one thing that Gaz said though that kind of I thought was interesting is, well, I don't know if I really want to reveal what he said because it's in a private group, but basically he was emphasizing the idea of editing, and that's a huge part of it. You know, some people say stories aren't written; they're edited or something like that. So, you know, there's definitely something to be said for kind of pantsing it, just throwing all your ideas out there and then just editing and then editing again and editing again. And eventually you come, if you do it long enough and you do it until it's, you know, thorough enough, I guess, you end up with a story. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just some thoughts. I noticed that we have a guest here. What's going on, Teresa? Is that Teresa or is it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's me.
yeah,
I've
Teresa.
been
What's up?
quietly listening to you,
Are you here?
getting on with my drawing. Sorry.
I don't
Yeah.
hear you,
Oh,
and
you
I
don't
don't
hear
know
me.
why. Oh, oh, now I do. I had you. I had my computer on mute. Sorry about that.
Ah, okay. I was checking if my microphone was working. I was like, what?
How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Did how's your New Year and everything? Everything go well?
Yeah, yeah, it went well. We didn't party or anything this year. We just got together in my house and played some board games.
That's cool. That's a great way to do it. We
Yeah.
didn't. We kind of did. We didn't do board games, but we just me and my wife. We hung out and we didn't even watch like any New Year's stuff. We're just like whatever. It's a regular day, and you know when it turned midnight, we are like cool, and we we're happy about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah, I've been
so
listening to your discussion.
oh yeah, do you have any thoughts on story or like how you kind of would approach it or do approach it? Actually,
I'm not a very I'm
go
not a
ahead.
very sophisticated thinker when it comes to these things. I'm
Yeah.
like in the same way that I think about most things. It's like if you keep doing it, you get better at it, and you just have to keep working at it and be patient.
Mm.
And like, well, when you talk about a system, I was thinking a system of work would be nice. Like I sit down and I do this and I try and do that. But I don't think there's like a formula that you can follow exactly. That's
Hmm.
the only thing I was thinking in particular.
Hmm. Yeah, it's actually interesting because I was listening. I was catching up on your videos on YouTube, and I didn't even realize you had two videos I hadn't seen. Um, but I was checking them out, and I the one you were talking about, like workflow and stuff like that. Almost finished, but I haven't gotten all the way to the end yet. But I thought it was it was a really good video.
Hey,
Yeah, yeah, it was intriguing. And one thing I remember you were saying was that when it comes to like kind of approaching certain things, you were saying that it's the like a lot of people worry about like the why, the question why, and
oh
what they'll
yeah,
do. But you were saying that what's more interesting to you is how to do it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And you brought up this whole thing too about getting into the flow state and kind of the working in chunks type of thing instead of as opposed to working working like just trying to put in a little bit every day, like the basically the 100 days method of working a half an hour every day. Um, and that there's pluses and minuses to both approaches, and I incorporate both of those into my work, but it really for me I don't have control of how I do it. You know, if I have time to do a chunk, then I'll do a chunk. If I only have time to do a little, then I have to just do a little. Which you actually addressed that as well in the video. But I thought it was interesting, the flow state thing, and I think I need to research that a little more. I've heard it, I've heard people talk about it, but I've never researched it because it just seems like something that I already do, you know, sometimes.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but I definitely
Like,
thought it was interesting.
thanks. Like, for me, it's like a lot of the times I find people saying like, "Oh, you have to find your final goal," and I find those type of advice so stressful. It's like it becomes almost like a philosophical question. Like, I don't know if you get what I mean, but I find those type of thinking very stressful, very final, very, like Avengers Endgame type thing. The world failure your purpose. For me, when it comes to doing stuff, I do them. I do stuff more like just do it and find a process that you can do so that you can do it consistently and put stuff out, and that's all I care about,
Hmm.
because I know that progress comes with practice and with time, and spending a lot of time trying to figure out exactly how to do things might be a trap.
Hmm.
So when it comes to research, what I was thinking when I was listening to you is like, yes, it is important to research, and I've read some of the books that you're talking about, and I listen to podcasts and stuff. Of course, I do that, but take all of those bits of information with caution, because that's one person's way of doing it.
Hmm.
That's one way to do story, and that's what I think. Like you have to find your own way, and you have to find your rhythm. I see it more as a personal process type thing rather than there is this method that you have to follow, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do is take the advice that I get and kind of cater it to my own kind of way of working. But I think the biggest struggle I've had, especially with stories, is it's kind of there's a term that people use when they read a book about it and it really helps them, and they say that this book has really like demystified story for me, and that's exactly how I feel mystified by this thing. Like it's hard to like crack the nut of what the heck story actually is, because I want to get certain effects with my story, but I have I don't know, maybe I just don't have the patience to like, or even the time, to just kind of go at it in a way where it's like, okay, I write like tons of words. I spend hours and hours and hours and hours writing words until I get something that's kind of like a story. And then now I spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours editing and then re-editing and re-edit. Like I can't. I need something that I can just jump in, make it, and then like now I have to work on I need to spend that time on the art, you know? So, but I don't, but I want them to be effective stories still. Like I don't want it, because the way I've been doing it is I kind of do almost like a bullet pointed list. And then sometimes it's more developed than that, sometimes it's not. But there's no real structure to it, and then I come out, with a product that is fun and cool, but it's still not hitting those satisfying points that I'm feel are lacking in comics, and I want to be able to hit those points.
Mm. But what do you think is lacking? Like, what exactly are you looking for?
Just basically kind of some of the stuff I was talking about before, the hitting on, a theme that is easily like observable. Also like kind of hitting on an emotional connection with the characters, and also just a lot of it just has to do with emotion, just trying to actually come away feeling something, anything almost. um I don't
Right.
know. Yeah, I just haven't gotten that same effect that I get with like movies and TV shows. um
Yeah.
and I enjoy that part of coming, like I like when I'm watching a movie and it brings you to tears or makes you laugh or something, and a lot of times in comics I don't get much of that kind of thing so far.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I would say films and shows do that, but not many. And a lot of the times, I think it's the music rather than what's happening in the film. For me,
Hmm.
massively. Like I can find myself tearing up to a film or a show that is not even emotional just because I like the music, and I'm like, oh my god. So if you try and put that and just mute the music, you'll see that the emotion that comes out is a lot less than you think. That's what I experienced.
Hmm. See, to me, I
Because
feel like,
you have a thrilling action scene, and suddenly you have this super stressy music, and you get excited before the scene even starts because of effects and music. And I think sound is a big part of it.
yeah, it's an amazing tool, and sometimes I wish I could have that tool in comics. But I'll be honest, like that is definitely a huge factor and definitely helps. Um, but I think the times that I get emotional with a movie is, I don't know, it seems to me that it's more situational. It's you know, it's when I can relate with the struggle a character has gone through, and then like when like the solution comes about. I mean, I don't know, there's just certain themes that hit me, like really hit me, and I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like it tends to be more situational for me, as far as kind of getting that.
Mm.
If it's set up really well, I think that's one thing that happened, that actually is a sin of storytellers, from who work in all kinds of mediums, but a lot of times people don't take the time to set up their story enough so that when it hits on these emotional points, they they it's not really as rewarding because they didn't actually set up the thing that would make you feel, whatever it is, like they didn't make you care about the character enough or whatever. So when they
Mm.
do actually come to a dramatic point, it just almost comes off as just melodramatic and not all that important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That can happen. Like if you use like cheap formulaic stuff, it just and they don't build it up, then nothing comes out of it. But I don't know. I've read comics that have really touched me
Hmm.
as much as a film or
Yeah.
book. And going back
Can
to, I don't know if you've ever watched many old films like from the 1920s when cinema didn't have sound effects and it was all like, well, more comic like. If you look at the 1910s and the 1920s cinema and the 1930s, a lot of it feels like comics. And I think it's just a question of, I don't know, like the stage of development that comics are in. You said like,
Yeah, it may very well be. And I think that I do think I'm just not reading the right comics too, because I focus mostly. I guess in my formative years, I focused more on superhero stuff,
oh yeah,
um, which you just first of all, it's like the '90s superhero stuff, which that stuff was devoid of any sign of story a lot of times. Um, but also just the typical stuff. Like I definitely get more of a feeling off of just like the original Spider-Man story and stuff like that. I think a big part of why comic stories haven't hit me is because they're just very unnatural forms of story oftentimes, because they're these ongoing epics that just perpetuate for no good reason. And
yeah,
like that's why I'm definitely kind of more attracted to manga these days, because at least they have an end in sight, and many of them have ended.
yeah,
Um, so I'm trying to get kind of more into some of those, but it takes a long time to read a full manga, anyways, because usually they're pretty long. So I haven't
yeah.
quite gotten to the end, I think, of some of them.
There are some short ones
What's that?
if you wanna. There are some short mangas as well, like one volume mangas.
Yeah.
There's one, the Akira.
Yep.
The same author, Katsuhiro Otomo, he has a one volume story that is amazing. That is called Domu, and it's about a residential building in which like there are murders, and it's like a police story with supernatural elements. And it's I think about 40 pages or something. And that's one of the ones that really hit me. Like this is amazing.
Really? I'll have to check that out. I have heard of that one, but I didn't realize it was a shorter story. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, there are some like, and I completely agree with you. Like I cannot care superheroes.
Hmm.
There's something about them that just is very out of touch with what my experience of life is, and maybe heroes and I'm not. I don't know. But it's not just that. It's just that the stories are not. It's like there's this bad guy that is gonna do something ridiculous, like drop an atomic bomb in a big city or something pointless that make no sense. Like that's the first thing that bothers me about superheroes is that the villains make no sense. Evil stuff, and that really bothers me because like I understand that with children's books, bad people are bad people and there's no nuance.
Right.
But I think the superhero genre is old enough to make, and I think that's what they did with the last Avengers. With Thanos,
Hmm.
of a villain that made sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a bit silly, but it made sense.
Yeah. It seems like the comic book adaptation to a lot. I mean, the movie adaptation to a lot of these comic books actually do have more satisfying stories than the actual comics sometimes. And I agree. Thanos was a little kind of a little more developed and stuff. And it's true, it's funny because, you see, if you see in a comic, oh, two of your favorite characters are going to be in the same comic. Well, you already know that they're going to fight, even though it doesn't make any sense that they would fight because
Yeah.
they're both heroes or something. Like if Superman and
Yeah.
Batman get together, they're going to fight. Why? I don't know, but they'll find a reason, and it's probably not that good of a reason.
Yes, yes. It's like fan service all the time. No sense. And if you're not a fan, you just can't care about it. It's like when I watched the first, I don't know if it was the first Avengers films or the second, I don't know. Suddenly, like Thor got in Iron Man, and I was like, why is this happening? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's like you come to a new world, there's a guy that says punch him in the face with your hammer. Why? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
get it.
First thing you do when you meet somebody else is
Yeah,
fight them,
exactly.
right?
Time I travel, I just get off the plane and start punching people in the face. Makes a lot of sense. I
That's
just can't
hilarious.
empathize. I don't understand why they do the things. It looks silly. And with manga, the thing is that you have so much context that even if it's absolutely ridiculous, you're like, okay, I get it. In the context of this situation, this makes sense.
Right.
But outside of the context, it's like, why is this happening?
Um, yeah, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So that's part of my solution is getting away from, I think, the superhero stuff to a certain extent, which I've already done. But then, what I end up finding a lot of times is these stories that are like they're artsy, and it's like they actually don't have much of a point, or if they have a point, it's more of like a philosophic point than as opposed to like an emotional um kind of social story, like just a typical
Like
story.
what? What are you
um
thinking about?
hmm I can't think of any specific examples, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. I know I've come across it. Probably more on like
Yeah, I find
maybe
Alan Moore is a little bit like that. It's like I appreciate him, but at the end of the day, it's like you
who
took
what's
in
that?
Alan Moore.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He's
Yeah.
like it's like very like I enjoy his comics, but at the end of the day, it's like you read V for Vendetta or whatever. He's so trying so hard to make a point about politics and stuff,
Mm,
and I just
yeah.
can't bring myself.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like I'm definitely curious to read more of stuff you make because I was looking at your Instagram yesterday and I just your sketches alone, like I don't know, like there's so much story just in your sketches even like your gestures and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think I'm definitely curious to read more of your stories and stuff as they come out for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
this year one of the things I'm gonna try and do to get. I struggle with illustration. When there's no story, I just don't know how to draw. So I always have to link a story at least in my head so that I can draw. And what I'm gonna do to make things easier for me is I'm gonna start role playing more, like games, role playing games.
mhm,
And so because for me it makes a lot more sense to doodle a a drawing in my sketchbook of a character of a role play than it is to do looking or pretty looking character, which a lot of people do, and they're happy because I think they have an illustrator's mind and they're happy just creating aesthetic pleasing things, and I just can't do it. I
yeah.
don't care if there's no story. I can't bring myself to do it.
Hmm. That's yeah. I feel the same way. Like every time I try to sit down and do fan art and stuff, I do get some out sometime, but that's always the problem I run into. I'm just not as motivated because it's like, oh, this is a cool looking picture, another cool looking picture of Batman. Like, like I
Yeah.
don't know, there needs to be some kind of story in there, and I kind of struggle with that. Um, but
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess comics. Maybe that's why I'm more interested in making comics or whatever. Um, but it is that time again for me to get going to work.
Okay.
Unfortunately, actually, you brought up the role playing thing, which is another thing I want to talk about at some point. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we can get another chance to chat longer one of these days.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, let's see. Let me just jump over to the chat real quick. Just at least say hi to people. Hello, by the way, everybody who's in chat. If there is anybody, where is this thing? Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, there's stuff. Dave Hingley's in there. Marius is in there. What's up, guys? Um, okay, so yeah, they're just kind of talking a little bit. Sorry, guys. I didn't get into the chat so much. Bane Flame says Persepolis. I think that's a suggestion of a story. I'll have to
Oh
check
yeah.
that out. And then
It's an autobiography.
is it?
Yep.
Um,
It's really
yeah,
cool.
I'll have to check that out. There's people a lot of times point me to autobios, like blankets and stuff for stories that are good, and I haven't checked them out yet, but I think I'm gonna have to because I really haven't even read an autobio comic yet. So, and it seems like
Wow.
that you can get some good stuff. Well, I guess I've read quarterly stories, but that's about it.
Right.
um, and then he said Mouse, which another one that people talk about a lot.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So cool. All right, I do have to get going. Teresa, thanks for coming on. Everybody, um, her links are already in the description. I leave the links for all the early bird guests as they come on in every early bird episode. So definitely check out her stuff. Check out her Instagram and check out her YouTube because there's some really cool videos and stuff on there. So yeah. And again, yeah, thanks Teresa for coming on.
No
Thank
problem.
you
Thank you.
everybody for watching. Yeah, no problem. And I will talk to you. We will talk to you on the next Escape Artist.
See you later. Bye
Later.
bye.